We kept our side of the covenant. It was you who lost the boy and the sword.
So this is what a live-action Ursula can look like. Hey y'all, Ash here. Thanks to the MCU, everyone wants a cinematic universe. But a series that could have started and what we were looking forward to was definitely King Arthur. Guy Ritchie is a director we love, so this movie we were super hyped for. We are going to talk about some of the negatives, and then talk about what we liked, and hopefully you will give the movie another chance. If you already loved it, let's see what we agree on, and feel free to let us know on what we missed in the comments below.
Out the front.
Which George? King George, Angry George, George the Dragon? Be clear, Arthur, which George?
Our George. Chinese George. Kung Fu George.
This movie kind of flopped with critics, fans, and definitely did financially. People really like to crap on this movie, and to be honest, we never really understood the hate. Is the movie perfect? No, no movie is. Does this movie get more hate than deserved? Definitely. Everyone who hated this movie complained about a lot. Some people said there wasn't enough history, while others said it wasn't enough fantasy. People also said it was way too rushed and jumpy, and to that, I say almost right. Rushed? Yes and no. It did the best with what they had, and also I'm curious on what Guy Ritchie had planned originally for everything. I mean, we're talking about Warner Brothers here. Snyder Cut compared to the theatrical Justice League, now that is a drastic example, but you get the point. Many felt there was not enough history or even fantasy elements, which I can certainly disagree with. In essence, movie 1 included most of the important character classes between the civilians, Blacklegs, Vikings, mages, sirens, and other creatures we've yet to explore, especially in the Badlands. Other important elements that were used were visibly in play, like the mage controlling animals, and not to mention Excalibur. A lot of people expect fan service of everything at once, but are disappointed if used too soon. Arthur as a legendary story has so much at play. We as a viewer merely got a glance of this large and magical world. For those who watched Merlin the British show, know we had so much to still see, like dragons for example. Many even complained about the story not being fleshed out enough. One example is Annabelle Wallis, who is known for Peaky Blinders. She is fantastic at acting, but her clips were short and seemed to have a layer missing. It is theorized that her scenes as Maggie were just cut altogether, especially since Maggie is the civilian's spokesperson. We only get a good one-liner from her stating what we already knew Vortigern's ending would be, while also being compromised of her position.
But what you fail to understand is that it's you who's fed the hangman that will eventually come for you. You might survive today, but the noose has been tied.
Understandably, Uther is not shown enough in this film. Honestly, I would have loved to have gotten his full story instead of little snippets, and this is not just because he is played by Eric Bana. Him charging into battle within minutes of the movie starting showed his fearlessness and the love for his kingdom as well as his people. The people seemed reasonably happy with him ruling, especially in comparison to Vortigern. The way he takes care of his family, you see his love and protection. I would have especially loved seeing him and Merlin interact. I also found it interesting for how it was decided to portray Uther. In some stories, like Merlin the British show, he is portrayed as a form of villain, or an antagonist restricting the use of magic amongst the regular race. Borderline extinction. I found this impactful for how they chose to portray Uther in this story, and how his rival wound up being his very own brother. The jumpy screen scenes complaint is said about every Guy Ritchie film, and that is honestly his personal charm. We actually expected it and enjoyed every instance. I personally wouldn't call it jumpy. Hear me out. Whenever a character is talking about a plan, we are already thinking about what is going on and how does it happen. I love that Guy Ritchie knows how the adventurer's mind is and then guides it to his story. It's very similar to what he did in the Sherlock Holmes movies, which everyone loved.
I will show them power. I will show them strength and dignity. They may have come for you, but they will leave. They will leave with a lasting impression of me.
As we stated for our opening quote of this section, Vortigern, while impressively walking in slow motion, shows his overall power or even current upper hand over not only Arthur, but surely even the public, or so he thought. Vortigern is the one eliminating magic from anyone in his way, so he can lead with fear and ultimate power.
When people fear you, it is the most intoxicating sensation a man can possess.
In reality, he is more paranoid about losing his power than he is about building a foundation of power. We see this from the beginning as Mordred is destroyed within minutes of the movie starting, and then later come to find out that he was at one point a mentor to Vortigern. Later on, the mage and Bedivere tell Arthur that the death of all mages was because of Vortigern. Stories of prophecies are always fun because you slowly see how the villain manages to screw himself over. Like with the Sirens, for example. They see his lust for power and they use that to their advantage by basically killing off his wife and daughter.
The born king will come.
Have I not sacrificed enough?
And have you not felt your power increase?
We can't help but mention Arthur and his friends, especially since it's Charlie frickin' Unum. He is seriously a snack. I really like that he was royalty, but unaware of it for a good chunk of the film. This was a nice take on his legend since we have seen him already in princely status or even a king status with his marriage to Guinevere in First Night. Even the added little touch of being raised in a brothel was creative or even accurate for those times. Arthur's upbringing actually makes him a humble person, kind-hearted, and designed leader or even protector. In reality, Arthur's actions spoke louder than words. Yes, he is smooth, but his caring demeanor is what shines the brightest, especially when mixed against Vortigern's fearful speeches. But our hero is not perfect. He still lives in fear of his potential along with being haunted by his past. Seeing his nightmares throughout most of the movie shows us continuously that Arthur is scared. He can mask his emotions somewhat, but him taking the rightful heir title along with the sword is quite daunting. Arthur accepting the sword while also accepting new friends is a great development. We see how much he cares for people, which is a trait just like his father. When they are running through Londinium, he tries to save everyone first, and then no one goes. Arthur sticks around for the fight alongside them.
Going down the hole now.
This also shows how much he learned to trust other people and be loyal to the people who believe in him. The film started out with him turning over Goose Fat Bill. Later on in the film, he doesn't turn him over, when in reality, this is probably the best moment to turn him over for, especially upon losing a dear friend. To drive this friendship point further, he even states twice.
Why have enemies when you can have friends? Why have enemies when you can have friends?
Over time, he even builds a friendship with a mage. The mage turns from being skeptical about Arthur to trusting him. She slowly interrupts him less and less as he gets stronger. I love that you see their bond, but it doesn't feel like a romance. They are truly mutuals, and I really like that concept for a strong female character that she is portrayed to be. She is also incredibly powerful and just as smart. Numerous times, she is very helpful with animals. She sacrificed a snake to help him, and clearly gets hurt mentally for it when the snake is decapitated. She even encourages Arthur to fight back for his rightful kingdom because the regulars or civilians are fighting in his name because he is no longer a myth. In general, I would have loved to see her interact with Merlin, since Merlin was Uther's guide and the mage is Arthur's.
What is it that you want?
I want to get my ass out of here. You just lost 2 men, but you were prepared to lose 5 to save this pretty neck. So I'm not going anywhere, am I?
Now, Bedivere is a minor character, but still very important. He is a leader until Arthur is ready. He is incredibly loyal to the people, not to Vortigern. You see him in the beginning briefly before Uther comes in like a wrecking ball, but most of the character developments happen around Arthur, which makes sense. It is his movie after all. He sees Arthur as a child when they meet in the woods, and by the end of the film, you see his trust for him. He was also the one to try to keep the group together as long as they followed the plan. This guy was clearly the Monica of the group. A perfect example is when Goose Fat Bill is going after his personal vendetta. Arthur slowly gets agitated, while Bedivere is breaking because he is straying so far from the plan. If plans mess up, Bedivere plays it safe. Retreat and regroup and start from square one. The other minor characters are loyal, and they're to help Arthur as well as understand things. They deliver exposition in almost perfect ways. Since this film was meant to be the foundation for the series, we see Percival, Goose Fat Bill, Wetstick, and we hear numerous numerous mentions of Merlin. It would have been great to see all of the characters grow even more. We could always use more of George. That dude was just awesome. But to see the Round Table transforming and they were labeled as King Arthur's knights, Lord Tristan, Lord William, and Lord Percival, was really nice to see as the conclusion. Unlike the early 2000s King Arthur movie where they all grow up together and technically already knights. This movie has not only unique humor, but is loaded with action, and there really isn't any action scene that's not enjoyable. From the opening invasion to the final battle, each one is a blast. Guy Ritchie literally misses no details in the characters, especially Arthur's. You see them as adults mostly, but there is a flash where you can actually see little Arthur with his few friends. Even the protection of the brothel. There's that action speaks louder than words. Things like this, the little attention to detail, is one of the many things that amplify this story. The moments of extreme slow motion of not just intense fights, but even Vortigern giving a power move to the crowd for the near execution of Arthur.
But what we are interested in is what you can do with this sword.
I see what you're doing. You're trying to get me to do something razzle-dazzle with that sword. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not getting drawn into this mess.
The title of this movie is Legend of the Sword, which fits in with Arthur's biggest battle within himself is the accepting of the sword, Excalibur. It is even clarified that Arthur does not control the sword, it controls him. This is the form of destiny amongst his Pendragon bloodline. The mage throughout the movie informs him of his resistance, so she continues to push him and makes him do what needs to be done, like visiting the Badlands in hopes of breaking his old self completely and making him think big by giving him something big to think about. It is also funny how this would normally be the moment where the main character learns everything, but not in Guy Ritchie's movie. Arthur was still resisting and had been told to let go and not look away. This was not only instructed by the Lady of the Lake, but also the mage, as she is to be trusted. To continue a little more with the sword tiring out Arthur detail was a really cool take on it. In the beginning, just a little touch of the sword has him passing out. As his friends and allies get in danger, we see Arthur starting to rely on Excalibur. We see his passion to protect takes over what he wants, but rather his destiny is falling into place. The awesome detail of when Arthur clenches his sword, it turns into a massive chaotic scene, and it slows down for some amazing moments. It is really relevant to Arthur's relationship to the sword. It's rough and he has to rush to use as much power as possible. This is drastically different compared to the end scene. When Arthur is leaving the castle and clenches his sword, everything slows down, and we see the precision and skill that Arthur has learned over the course of time. He no longer looks away from his past or nightmares of his parents' death. Rather, he looks to the future as the rightful king of Camelot. Arthur is no longer denying his destiny or connection to Excalibur. He also tells Vortigern that because of his life being changed at such a young age, his internal drive to be a better person was due to him.
You wanted to know what gave me such drive. It was you. You put me in that brothel. Caught me on the streets. I am here now because of you. You created me.
Honestly, the overall detail or creativity of this legend by Guy Ritchie leaves no expense behind to add to the creature lore, which is everything and more to expect from a King Arthur film. The elephants looked super epic, a real Lord of the Rings feeling mixed with the Trojan horse vibes of Troy. The sirens are some of the best and worst things of this film. I am obsessed with mermaids and sirens and the different takes on them. This one was so intriguing yet disgusting at the same time. Everything about them is so conflicting. Cool, yet freaky, intriguing, yet nightmare fuel. Not to mention the best part is the final fight. It's a perfect balance of fast, intense action and slow, nail-biting moments. The way the camera pans and certain attention to details really keeps you in the heart-pounding thrill. Like the moment you see Arthur's mom speared, you not only have the slow motion, but in the background of the river, you see the wind ripples from the spear's force. Even the activity of the camera shaking each time Arthur lifts the sword was fantastic. We also can't forget the intense moments of running through the streets on the physical shoulders of Arthur Arthur and his friends. You literally feel their exhaustion too just by watching them. Overall, I wish this movie had more movies fulfilled in the future to continue Guy Ritchie's version or even his vision of King Arthur. We end the movie experiencing the power rebalanced to peace due to Vortigern breaking the power law. I would have been intrigued to see more development on the mage and Arthur's friendship. Would we even get a Guinevere in a future installment? Also, where is Lancelot? I guess it is something we can talk about in the comments below, but don't forget to like and subscribe so we can continue giving you videos just like this. Stay nerdy and keep binging.